Good morning and hi, Rohina. Welcome to the Goa School program. Um, as you know, the Goa School's vision is to build sustainable communities of inspired people who support and navigate life together. We work with fellows who support or we hope will become change makers like yourself in India. And we hope that we help them in gaining new knowledge and provide them a platform to network through. What we do here in Goa is a curated 5-day immersion program. And then we provide them with a year-long mentoring to help them reach their goals to become future change makers. Once that is done, then we give them access to a membership of our alumni network. And then we also provide them with high-level talks like this one. And today, everyone, we have Rohina Das here with us. And I'll let her introduce herself and tell you all about who she is. So Rohina, over to you.
Thank you, Paloma. It's amazing to be a small, tiny part of this great endeavor, which is the Goa School. Thank you for telling me more about it. My name is Rohina. I grew up in Lucknow, and I loved all subjects. I was quite a nerd. I really liked everything. I just liked learning. But I had a creative bent as well. But I really wanted to do something that was perceived as smart and like be respected for my intellect. So I decided to study international relations and economics, and go into what would eventually lead to what my father would call it president of the world, which is not
Wow.
a real job. But the second best option was, something to do with the UN or United Nations and work in the impact space, or in foreign policy or something that seemed really important to the world.
Yeah, it sounds so
And at
cool.
that age, of course, I I really wanted to, be a part of life doing something that mattered, and that mattered to a lot of people, and that could actually create change. So while at university, I did a lot of climate action work. But then I came back to India, and then I moved into the health space. So I worked in public policy for public health. Right before COVID is when I started. So it was a very interesting time to be working in that area, because you have to learn on the job, and you have to suddenly, you see the impacts of public health, and it became an issue that was so important to everyone at
Yeah.
that time. And to be honest, before I had the job, I had no idea what public health was. I was very in like a very different space. So my first day at the job, I actually sat there Googling what is public health. Um, but eventually that was a great opportunity.
How did you choose your initial career path? What was your thought when you came out of
So, I
college?
mean, when I came out of college, I really wanted to work in climate action. But at that time, the climate action space in India, I went for like a couple of internships and tried to network with some people. But it was a very non-vibrant space. Like, I don't know how to represent that, but it was just not open to a lot of youth action. It was very technical, and they were looking for people with more PhDs to do things at the grassroots level with agriculture, and it was just a very different environment to work in. So I was then broadened my scope and was looking to work in anything that had to do with development in India. And at that time, this opportunity came to me, and it was a huge, huge learning and a great opportunity. So I actually felt like very few people study what, you're going to do, and then you immediately apply it.
Right.
Usually you go through a few opportunities and you're like, I see how what I learned in college is being applied. But this was directly that. It was a very learning on the job kind of job. They put the institution I worked with particularly hired a lot of young people straight out of college and really took it upon themselves to train you. But they also made you feel like you're the expert and you have to give us a concept note tomorrow on this big issue. And you
Right.
just have to like figure out the economic political situation of a country overnight. So
Wow.
it was a lot of everything that I'd learned, I felt like had really prepared me for this role. Except for the timelines. Those were kind of crazy, which is why eventually I transitioned out. But
Okay.
it was a very, it seemed really impactful. Like the work seemed like you're actually contributing to policy decisions, or you're contributing to informing decision makers with real data on what's happening in other countries, and how to help them make that decision. So we
Okay.
worked with political officials, we worked with, so every state or like government unit will have a technical support unit. So my agency worked in communications and advocacy. So we would push for a certain aspect, for example, making HPV vaccine. So how to push for and how to phrase that. Because just because you come up with a new, public health scheme doesn't mean that one, it'll be adopted by the government themselves, two, that other people will. So it just felt like, this was a very unique position to be in, where I'm getting to do the research to inform people on how to make decisions that will benefit the population, the Indian
Right.
population. So it sounded very intellectual, and I really wanted to, as I mentioned, like I think a big part of a reward for me is to, how I'm perceived in terms of for my intellect. And at that time, so growing up, my mother was a designer
Yeah.
and my dad was a statistician. And my family, of course, is like, they had a lot of degrees and, background in history and education. And I think there was this always, in the way that it was told to me, there was always this thing where, oh, you don't really need to study design, you can just do it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really rewarded as this um, very cognitive act, or very cognitive or intellectual field, even
Yeah.
though I realize now how much it is.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was like, yeah, no, I'm smarter than that. So I chose this career, and I also thought it would get me to travel a lot and live across the world.
Yeah. And so when did you actually start thinking about making that change or that switch?
That's a great question. So I've been freelancing since my like second year in college. So at that time, I mean, I just really love design as a passion. So anytime there was an opportunity to do something in relation to graphic design, I would say, let me represent this, or let me create that pitch deck, or let me design this. And it was also something I was known for in every place that I worked, where, okay, just send it to Rohina, she'll make it pretty.
Yeah.
And or and it's such a lens that kind of elevates everything that you do. I did choose this as a career. I just wanted to leave my other job because I wasn't very happy with it. It was really impacting my mental health, and I was very, very burnt out. And at that time, of course, one thing that you think about when you're changing or leaving a job is, how are you going to earn? How are you going to financially support yourself through that transition? And is that a good decision? Should you be taking a career break so early in your career? This is
Yeah.
your first job. How can you leave it? So within 6 months of that job, honestly, I wanted to leave, but then I stayed because I thought I needed to rough it out. I
Yeah.
needed to do the hard work, see if it was me or the organization that wasn't a good fit. I learned a lot. And 2.5 years later, I made that decision finally
That's
to
wonderful.
step out of that role after a lot of support and like conversations almost every day on like how to do that. And then I did. And then I took a break. So I really needed like a break, but I did that because I had already set up like a freelance project with someone I had done before, which would give me at least a little bit to cover my basic expenses. And I was doing that, and I just happened to mention it to someone. So they gave me another project, and then there was another one. And then I finally realized that this is now it's like my full-time job.
Yeah.
And so now I need to kind of structure it and turn it into a business, and brand myself. So just for clarity, like I now run my own brand design studio, where we work with different brands to give them a visual identity, and work across a lot of different channels like product, digital design, print design, to do packaging, ads, and even like store design. So there's a lot of different things. It's very multidisciplinary. And I've just grown into that role.
Okay. So you didn't actually like when you came out of college, you weren't really focused on doing the design because of the thought that but wasn't as intelligent. And so
Yeah.
you got a job which was in your stream basically. And I like what you said about how after 6 months you wanted to leave because the timelines were crazy. And but then you stuck it out, which is I think really important as well, because sometimes what you said is really important about how you have to see whether it's it you or is it the organization, and can you still make it work? I think sometimes a lot of people kind of just give up, thinking, okay, it's not for me, and then quickly change. But staying out for 2.5 years and actually seeing and still giving your best and seeing whether like
Yeah.
that works for you. So were there other challenges apart from the timelines that you had, um, that like made you want to leave?
I think so. Of course, one is whether you're enjoying your job on a daily basis or not. And I think that changes every day. Sometimes you have something you're very passionate about, you get to work on it. It wasn't as if this organization wasn't responsive to that. I had amazing bosses, amazing management, and really a lot of support in this workplace. It was just the work culture that wasn't for me. And I think when I saw my growth in this role, I saw that as I grow, I'll have to do more admin stuff.
Right.
Or, I move away from that core research and that core learning on the job. I think one thing that makes work very rewarding for me is if I get to learn something new and if I get to craft or shape an idea, which is exactly what I do every day now at my job. But at that time, I realized that the deeper you go, it's more management, and that's very valuable. But it wasn't something that I found I would be excited by. And also, as you grow, you get to work more directly with stakeholders. And I don't really see myself as someone wanting to engage with politicians every day or the government every day. So I realized I wanted to be interacting with more entrepreneurial people. I wanted to be involved in, I've always had this small business mindset of, after studying economics as well, of how do we like maximize how a product or service is delivered. And I think I brought that to my work in development, and I've thought that it was more important there. I still probably think it'll be more important there, but it just so happens that this career is more private sector focused.
Yeah.
So we'll see how I bring in that impact focus to this work that I do now as well. In many ways, I've tried to do that. I work a lot with nonprofits. I work with a lot of my friends who are change makers to help bring their idea to life. And that has been really helpful. Like, it's not very profitable for me, but it's so profitable in terms of the joy of working.
Yeah, which is so important.
So yeah. So I think I mean, to answer your question, which was
The
I forgot challenges. Yeah, I think once you realize that, of course, it's not the organization that's going to change, or it's not you, it's just it's just not working for you, but also it's not going to get any better, or you're not excited by it getting better.
Yeah.
That's when I just realized, like, okay, it's now I've done my bit. And it's very hard to find when you reach the end of the road, because you're just like, okay, but what if I just stayed? What if it's just like 2 months more or
Yeah.
6 months more? Maybe I'll get that bonus and leave. But it's just I think throughout my life I've just realized when I need to leave. It takes me 6 months of anguish to actually get to that
Push.
point after I've decided to actually leave. But it
Yeah.
happens, and I really appreciate. I think every moment, even in my current role, every moment has counted. Like those extra 6 months that I stayed at the end when after I had decided I really wanted to leave, taught me so many things that I still use that I couldn't have done without it. And even like now looking back, I think it has been easier and more if I may say so, successful transition because of the skills that I picked up in this other role in
Right.
terms of client management, in terms of business management as well, structure, how to structure your job, how to work in a way, even though I was a team of one for the longest time, how to create systems and work in a way that even when you bring on someone new, it's not as if you have to reinvent the wheel again. You can bring them on and you're ready for collaboration.
Yeah. I think it is quite scary when you work for an organization, you work for someone where the structure is already there, and then you're
Yeah.
moving to um, a job or a business where you are that one, and there's no other support
Yeah.
around you. So, what was the most scary part about making that career change, and who was your rock during that time?
I think the scary part was that the thing that I was avoiding, which was this the timelines and the everyday being an emergency, didn't end for a while because now you when you start working for yourself, you have to find a balance between how many hours you want to put in and how much time something will take.
Mm.
Now, also, it wasn't as if I jumped into this career with everything ready to go. Like I had all the skill sets, all the software knowledge. It's something I developed on the job. So I was really like that 1 year, I was just trying to learn what this involved because this career just happened to me and I just embraced it. But their software had to learn overnight so that I could deliver something that I promised to a client.
Yeah.
So I think it still meant me working like 70, 80 hours a week, but it was something that I felt at least it was interesting to me.
Yeah.
It was creative, which I didn't realize how rewarding creative work could be, even if it takes hours. Like even last night, I was working till like 1 a.m. to finish something just because I was excited by it, not because there was a deadline. I've learned so much about how to commit to certain deadlines and how to give myself some breathing room. But 2.5 years in, but I think it's just that the scary part was, of course, not knowing how much to take on, when, how will I balance it, how will I do it all.
Yeah.
And of course the responsibility, you can't just stop, you can't, like, if you take a day off, it's all going to still come on you. When you
Yeah.
work at a workplace, if you take a day off, your team kind of handles the workload for that day. And it's not as if there's no pressure aside from that. But so it went from working for one boss to working for 6, 7 bosses who have like the number of clients you have because
Yeah.
you're responsible to them. So I think that was the scary part in the transition, and also not knowing if this was going to work out, or like what if I don't commit to too much, will I make my ends meet.
Yeah.
But it I think it worked out. I trusted my gut. I worked extra hard until I realized what was a good pace for me, and we figured the balance out. At the time, I think, of course, to make that transition, I had two people that were very, very helpful. One is, of course, my mother. She was very supportive. She was also kind of someone, she's always supported me from the beginning, but she also is a big fan of grit. So she has this perspective, it's slightly older perspective of just like sticking something out, and trying your best to make it work and taking what you get and making the most out of it. But she changed my perspective on success. So for when I growing up, I thought, you had to be the very best and nothing else was acceptable. And so when you transition into a new career, you're bound to make certain mistakes, or you're bound to not, uh, you're responsible for them. The impact is on you, but there's challenges are going to come up. And that doesn't mean you're not successful. Just because you started today and tomorrow you're not the best design agency in the world, doesn't mean that you're failing. You're
Failure, correct.
learning, you're growing, and it's going to take some time. So I think she like helped me shift that perspective from uh, being an overnight success to maybe creating something with a pace of like slowly building something great and working at a pace that would give me a good lifestyle today. I think I realized that, of course, when you're younger, you want to make a lot of money. If that's important to you, you want to, be financially secure, and that's a big focus. because it helps you access a lifestyle that you really want to live, one of peace and security. But I realized I wasn't going to be that person who will live a really like tough life now for a lot of money to be able to like live a good life in my 40s or 50s. I realized that I'd rather be more content with less today and have a good lifestyle on an everyday basis. And I think that's a big generational switch also,
Yeah.
because I think the generation before was you stayed in like a job for a long time, you built that loyalty in an organization and you were rewarded for it, but you plodded long. And I think it was okay for you to have difficult times early on because that you're young, you have the energy, you have the passion, and then eventually you'll benefit from that later on.
Yeah.
And I think even today, there's still a lot of industries like consulting, law, where corporate law, where it's really, really difficult every day, but they get paid a lot
Yeah.
for that benefit. So I have friends who do the alternative, but for me, it was more important to do that. And then secondly, at that time, I had a partner, and he was very supportive in ways that he helped me enable myself. So he was like, you know what, you can plan your finances. Here's what you need to do. Because for me, I'm a very emotional person. So for me, it's like all I'm feeling is the anxiety of, can I leave this? Can I do this? What am I going to do? What are people going to think? What am I
Yeah.
going to think about myself? And he was just like, block out the noise. You can reframe everything. You can redefine what success is for you at this stage. Maybe you grew up with a particular idea of it, but now it can be different. Um, and so I think, and he was so patient with me. I would cry almost every day. And every day he would just not be like, oh, this again, or why don't you just leave? But he would just like walk me through the steps. So I think it's very helpful to find a friend or someone like a peer, I think, of your own age to redefine things in a new and fresh perspective, so that you don't feel like you're alone.
Yeah. No, that's so important. You need that support, like, and it's good that you have someone that you could rely on at that time. So, what were like the new things that you had to learn to get onto this new path? And one was like a program that you had to learn. Anything else that came up?
So, of course, there were a lot of hard skills. So, design is, I mean, mostly done digitally now. It's very different from how it even was 10, 20 years ago. I have a very funny story of how I became a designer. So, in ninth grade, or in class nine, I really did not like my math teacher. And I wasn't, I was still, was very like authority was important to me, and like I couldn't not be in a class, or I couldn't skip class. But this one day I just could not do it. So I she entered from the front door and I exited from the back door, and I went to my art teacher, and I was like, please, I cannot go to class right now. I just don't want to study math today. And my art teacher was like, well, I can't support you in skipping class, so why don't you go learn something else? So she sent me to this computer lab where someone was sitting there and working, and she said, ask him to teach you how to do digital design and make a poster for some upcoming event of the school. So that day he taught me how to use Photoshop for the first time, and very like simple, like you basically oriented me towards it. And he said, explore and experiment and create something. And I did. And then I asked him for that software, and I started playing around with it at home as well. And that is literally why I'm in this career, because that kind of paved the way for me to do a lot of my early initial freelance projects. I would say, yes, I can design this, and I would do that. And I would use any tool that I could, that I knew how to, whether it was even PowerPoint,
Yeah.
to create something for whatever event that it was. And so that took me through many, many years. I think I would say even 6, 7 years, or even more. And then, but I never felt like I was a designer because there was so much technical knowledge I didn't have. So I didn't know how to use certain software that was really important for you to do that. Um, But I plodded along and I was like, yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that. And I would commit to a lot of things for clients because I knew that I could learn it on my own. Like I
Mm.
would just have to get it. I would use YouTube tutorials, which are amazing, and figure it out. And I think that's a big learning in terms of transitioning into a new career or even transitioning to another job within the same one. You're not going to know or you're not going to meet the criteria of that job 100%. Even if you meet 40% of the requirements that they've listed in their key responsibilities, as long as you're open to learning and you're a self-driven learner, you can figure it out. And you can commit to saying that, I can do this and figure out how to do it. If we already had all the skills we needed for the job, then why would we be like, there's more profitable ways to be able to do that.
Okay. So learning, I think, is a huge thing that I guess like there's a saying that says if you don't learn something new every day, then you're basically dead because you really should be learning something new every day. And with with the amount of access to like the internet and just so many platforms that teach you so many different things, you can always continuously upskill yourself. And we're from the training background, so I just know like how important training is and how much easier it can make your job when you learn something, you feel so much more confident to be able to take on new projects or to be able to speak to someone who before you would feel very shy and afraid to do so. So I think
Of course.
yeah, that is like very, very important. So what were some of the principles that you used to run your new workspace?
That's a great question. I really used to think about that a lot, and I recently, um, I'm like rebranding my organization because I'm ready for the next phase of growth. And I came up with this manifesto of like 11 things that were really important that I need someone to be on board with. If they're working with me, if they're working with our clients, this is what is expected. And I think some of the principles that came out to me was one, in this industry where you're a sometimes you can be seen as a vendor rather than a collaborator.
Yeah.
um, Going beyond the semantics of the words, I think having a respect or respectful interactions between you and the client, you and your work, you and your collaborators is so important. I've seen the way some clients can treat, designers they're working with, as if I've seen the way people give feedback. And I'm like, we're on the same team. We want to make something for you. You don't
Yeah,
have to say, oh, you didn't do that. Just tell me what you would like, um, or and why, and kind of having that sense of respect for yourself. I think a lot of times when young people start in this field, they feel very thankful and grateful that someone has given them this project, and they put themselves on a step lower than their client. They say, oh my god, customer is king. But they've hired you for your skill, they've hired you for your perspective. You have to respect that about yourself and respect your point of view. Back it up with why you think this way, or why this would work, or why this wouldn't. And that, of course, communication skills really help with, and presentation skills. But even though I look a little younger for the clients that I've worked with, I think I just always presented myself as confident, and especially in terms of an industry where pricing is very variable. Like
yeah,
we don't price the same way. You can decide whether you're going to price the same way to every client, and that's just your standard rate, or whether you want to change that based on what the client is or the project.
of course.
There's a lot of negotiations that can happen. And in that time, I think I just stood steadfast. And this is something I've learned from the mistakes of my mom's business in design, which is it's just you don't have to convince someone this is your value. You just have to be like, this is my value. If you embody that, you're going to get good projects, and you're going to get work that you enjoy doing for someone, and you're going to build a relationship that lasts much longer than that project. So luckily, I've been able to, transition a lot of those clients into long-term clients or collaborations. Um, and I think that was one big principle. And I continue to, whenever I bring someone new on board as well, aside from telling them that I respect and value their opinion. So even if they don't have as much experience, if they have a different opinion, I would really like to hear it. And that's why I have them here. And we need collaboration in terms of ideas. We need to brainstorm. I need to sometimes be able to step out of how I think. Otherwise, all the things I design will be the same. And of course, respecting your work and your commitment to it. So I take responsibility very seriously. Sometimes things might take me longer, sometimes they make me shorter time period, but completing that, being responsible towards your client, communicating to them when things are delayed, it's fine. And honestly, there's no design emergency in the world. I think things can take their time. A
Yeah,
lot of times clients will be like, I need this tomorrow. You won't get something good tomorrow.
of course.
So I always give them the option. I'm like, you have to respect that these things take time. It's not just putting it on a screen and moving things around. it takes I've had this conversation with so many of my clients and good clients as well. They're like, oh, just add this. And I'm like, it's not just adding it. You will be surprised by how many nuances there are to just adding one element over there. So if you respect the fact that this takes time, and if you respect the fact that it is an intellectual and very there's a certain intelligence involved in this,
Correct.
and it's a creative intelligence that not everyone has, you'll give good work as well. Another thing, of course, that another principle that I have was we you have to really separate yourself from your work sometimes, because as a creative you feel like, oh, I created this, I love it so much, the client is gonna love it, and most of the time they choose the one that I really didn't like. So you have to separate yourself a little bit from what's being done and not take feedback personally. That's been I'm still working on that. It's still a challenge because I think I put so much of myself in my work that when there's feedback, sometimes the feedback just doesn't make sense. But other times it's just not in the way that I'd like it or whatever. I just have to pull back and be like, you know what? It's fine. We'll start again.
Right.
Always collect what they didn't like as well, because that is also helpful feedback of what you want to avoid. So I think, I don't know what the principle in that is, but I think, yeah, there's one there. And of course, something that I share with everyone that I work with is be agile. Like, things are going to change every day. Be open to learning something new. If I want something different, with creatives, there's a big gap between, as you grow, there's a gap between like your taste and what you think is really good and your technical ability. And sometimes you may only promise what your technical ability is because you don't know how to get to there. But then you won't be really satisfied with your designs, and your clients will, you're still staying at a level. But to push
Right.
yourself, you have to, like, sometimes, if that works for you and it works for me, commit to creating something like this
Yeah.
and filling that gap with learning. And it takes years, it takes time, but with all the tools we have at our disposal, with AI, with YouTube, and so many, I'm so thankful to all creators out there who've put on these tutorials for how to do simple things. I think you only grow when you push yourself to do that.
Yeah. So I think those are like really wonderful thoughts that you put out there because I didn't ask you actually, when did you start your own company?
2 years ago. So
How
in
old?
2022, I left my job in July. And then I think by 2023, Jan is when I like officially started.
Okay. So if you don't mind me asking, how old were you then?
I was 27. I just turned 27.
Okay. So I think it's
Yeah.
fantastic that at the age of 27, where people are still sometimes figuring out like, what it is that they're doing, you've managed to actually come up with these principles where, you put yourself first, you give respect to your intelligence and your product, and you're able to say no to certain projects because either they don't pay you what you value yourself at. And everyone is kind of always in a hurry. And yet you can
Yeah.
tell them that, like, if you really want a good project, you wait. But if you want like a half decent project, I can do something for you tomorrow, but you're not gonna like it and it's not gonna be worth anything or rather, I don't want to put my name to it because it isn't actually
That,
worth anything. So I think that's like a wonderful thing at a younger age to be able to respect yourself enough and the hard work that you do to be able to do that.
thank
So
you. I think
yeah,
actually brought up such a good point. I think one of in that manifesto thing, one of the, at least for me, one of the top things is knowing when to say no. It's really hard when you're taught in business that you have to say yes to everything, every opportunity. And a lot of like buzz self-help things will say yes, you know. But I think saying no is also equally powerful. And you have this gut instinct when a client is not going to be good to you, or you have an idea of like this project would be great, even if there's a lot of money in it, but it's just not, why would I do it? It has nothing to do with the direction I want to go in. And knowing when to say no really opens up space for other things that you will wholeheartedly want to say yes to. And
yeah,
it's very difficult to know when to do that. Even just now, like I had this conversation with a very good close friend of mine who advises me a lot on like how to grow my work. Um, and he was like, you should never say no to a client. And I think he views this in a very different way. He views it as a business where you just get like someone to give you money and you convert something and push something out. He's not interested or not looking at the value of what we are putting out. And that's fair. I think there are a lot of design agencies work that way and it works for them. But for me, it's so important that whoever I'm working with feels valued, not just in terms of monetary compensation, but also in the work that they're doing. I want to be really proud of everything that I have my name to.
yeah,
So as you mentioned, I think that's such an important value, that again, all of these are very hard to find balancing acts, but you'll figure it out yourself as you go, and you might get it wrong sometimes, but eventually you'll figure that out.
yeah. So I think you mentioned it earlier where even if you do get it wrong, it's still a learning. And if the customer doesn't like something, you're still learning, how to do things differently or how to um, kind of navigate through certain things. So
Yeah,
in your team, do you have a team, and what would you like to see in a person that you would work with?
that's a great question. So yes, I have a small team of like experts. So I have product designers. I have one full-time person who just supports the graphic side of things. We have a video team. So one quality amongst all of them is that they really care about the outcome of their work. They're committed to creating something of quality, and they're committed to trying something out, even when they don't know. And I really give them the time to push themselves a little bit. I'm like, you take your time to develop something that you're proud of. Give me something that you really like. So there's that level of commitment to their work. They're all very open to learning. I'm like, if you think you can't do this, it's okay. Let's figure out how we can do it. So learning how to like uh not shut down when you're being asked to do something beyond your capabilities, but actually use it as an opportunity to open up to a new skill that you didn't think you had. Pushing yourself to do that. Um, and let's see. And of course, professionalism. And professionalism includes communicating. So if communicate your challenges, one of the key things is, and this is something I think is the biggest learning I've had in the past few years, is how to ask for help, including when I ask clients of like, well, this is the feedback I need. I really structure out what I want to know from them. So asking for help is a skill, and it's a skill that we aren't really taught enough, because we just say like, help me, but how do you
Yeah.
really, what would actually be helpful? So I really I take my check-ins with the people I work with very seriously, and I try and give them the vocabulary for what it means to ask for help. So I'm like, what happened there? A lot of the times they'll just, because they're young, they'll just stop at a task. They just won't continue because they're like, oh, I thought it was really hard and challenging, so I didn't do it. And I'm like, okay, you can't just leave a task. You have to communicate what that challenge is. So figuring out and diagnosing your problem to be able to communicate it to someone else to get that support is a skill you learn on the job and you learn in a workplace. But it's, I think, one of the greatest skills of professionalism, because you're not meant to do everything alone. And if you're doing it alone, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So it's eventually it's gonna hit, it's gonna interact with someone, the product of your work, whether that's even in like policy, someone's gonna review it. And then they're gonna be like, what is this? This is not what I needed. So always repositioning what the objective is. I think that is also something that I look for in terms of professionalism. Are you aware of what we're working towards? Or are you just focused on the task? Because if you're focused on the task, fine, you may get some things right, but a lot of things will just go back into let's start again, let's start again. So kind of figuring and navigating that. And of course, being on time, being there for check-ins.
Yeah.
It's so simple, but it's something that's so important to me. I always tell my clients I'm going to be there. If our meeting is at 10, I'm going to be there at like 9:55. So please, like, we start at 10 because I have another call immediately after that.
Yeah.
And so and if they're late, I'm just like, well, our meeting is still going to end when it's going to end.
Yes.
So it's these are small things, but they really add to the way that you present yourself and the way that you work. The more that you respect your time and others' time, the better your life is, honestly.
Yeah. I think that's like another really great lesson out there that timeliness is so important for everyone. Like you have to
Yeah.
respect, like you said, your time as well as the client's time. And if you don't respect someone's time, that kind of really shows poorly of what you think about them as well. That you're not, being there in time for that meeting. And
Yeah,
like you do schedule your time for your next. So I think that's
exactly.
wonderful. Yeah.
And also, like, I think in terms of energies, like I know that a certain time of day I'm working on a task. That doesn't mean I'm free to take a call. That just means I'm working on that task. So sometimes, like, a client will, in the middle of the day, we don't have a set time, but they'll be like, are you free for a call? I'll give them a time because I'm like, right now, I cannot be distracted by
Yeah.
this. So, and I don't want to, in this world of like hyper availability, I think we need to really protect our energy and like our focused energy for certain times. So I think like not being constantly available, but knowing when to like reply and all of that is really, really important to me. And I have this onboarding deck in which I add like, you have to give me 24 hours to get back to you. Nothing is an emergency. So you have to give me 24 hours. And no working on the weekends. I will not be liable to respond on the weekends because breaks are so, so important.
Yeah, so I think especially when you're in that creative field of designing, you need your creative juices are going and you can't really
Yeah,
get pulled away and then you're like, okay, where was I? Yeah.
exactly. You lose your
Yeah. And of course, you don't want to burn out. So you have that time for yourself where you get to enjoy some peace and quiet and refocus, or even, I guess, when you look around, you kind of get ideas from, you probably don't stop, right? When you're at a new place and you get ideas, or when you see things and you get more ideas. So it's, you're
Yeah,
actually never off.
exactly.
You're always on.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah. So you need that weekend to really try and switch off.
I
Yeah.
try. I try. Still, I'm not good at it. I still say, oh, I'll just do that one task so I'm ready for the next week. But
Yeah.
I need like one day to do nothing.
Good.
And I still find something to do.
So I think, as a young person, it's so wonderful that you headed into a career and then you found that you were more creative, or you had a true calling in another direction, and you took some time to really think about it and then make the change. And even though it's not in the line that you initially dreamt of, you're still making changes in a different sector. So, what would be like a message that you'd like to give maybe young people who are also seeking to become change makers in their own respect, like in different sectors and different areas? What would you tell them?
That's such a good question. I think the first thing I would say is there's two ways to make change. One is, of course, disruptive change, which is really valued in our society right now because it makes for great social media content. It makes for a great story. and everybody wants to be a disruptor or a unicorn company or like innovator or whatever it is. But there's also, and for generations, there's been like incremental change makers. So you do something every day, or like you work your whole life towards a small change that really leads up to this big change. So you can either be like a tsunami of change, or you can be like a little wave that grows, grows, grows to create something new. So I think you can decide what works best for you. Just because you don't have like a path-breaking idea tomorrow that changes something forever doesn't mean you're not a change maker. There are a lot of things you can do in your everyday, or even a big goal that you're working towards, but over a few years. I think we value 30 under 30, or like you're a youth change maker, do everything in 1 year. There has to be some sustainable change, and sustainable change happens from things done over time. So I think there's a huge decision for people to make of like, what do they want to contribute to, and how do they see themselves as a change maker, to identify themselves. And the second thing is, and this is something I learned at university as well, a lot of people talk about leadership as a key factor of change making. And it's true. Like, you have to, if you're the change maker, you have to take that push. You have to identify an issue, identify a solution, and push for it. But it's not going to move without other people. Just because you came up with a new idea or you came up with something, a solution, doesn't mean that's going to happen. I
Right.
think we undervalue how much leadership includes collaboration, and how much leadership includes other people. And bringing that, one concept we learned in university was, in a leadership course, was the first follower. And how the first follower is the most important person. I'm not saying that don't be a maverick in your field, but a first follower commits, like understands, listens to someone's idea, understands and sees the potential of it, and supports them, and creates that legitimacy to this idea that snowballs into something bigger. So you may not be the one that comes up with that solution. You may not be that comes up with the identification, but if you contribute to change making, you're still a change maker. So I think, I mean, everyone talks about leadership and, take that step, push that. Great. If that works for you, amazing. You're on a great track. But don't feel like you're not a change maker just because you're helping someone else make that change. And as part of that is, you have to really talk to people. You have to really understand their, not have surface level conversations, but authentically connect with someone to understand what they want to change or what their issue is. And talk to everyone. No one is like, when you think of networking, a lot of people say, oh, we're going to this event where there could be like a lot of high net worth professionals, or these people who have so much experience. And I watched this interview of a very well-known creative in the Hollywood industry, and she was talking about how networking is also your peers, because eventually all of you are going to be in that, like, you're going to grow in your careers, and at that position you're going to be in positions of power,
Yeah.
and then you'll know everyone in power.
Yeah.
So, or everyone doing something cool. So I would say it's really worked for me in my life to see not just people older than me or like with more experience as people I want to network with, but anyone. Everyone has something interesting going on, or something going on in their life, whether that, not all in interactions have to be transactional.
Yes.
Sometimes you're the one giving feedback, or you're the one sharing an idea or something. But don't worry about like the quantity of relationships you build, but the quality of those. And keep talking about your work, because change making comes from when more people know about what you're trying to do and join the cause, or amplify what other people are doing.
Yeah. Those are like really powerful thoughts for the fellows to like actually gain from. I think it's great what you talked about, like in networking, that you can really just talk to anybody, and anybody can be the connector for you. It doesn't have to be someone who is at a particular level or a position. And just how it's not transactional, which is definitely true. We can't keep saying that, okay, I'll give this, I get this. That's
Yeah,
also a little bit on the selfish side. So I think that's wonderful. Rohina, it's been
I
such
think
a pleasure. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just sorry, just to reiterate your point. I think for the fellows, it will be so important to be part of that community, not because they get to interact with, of course, like all the wonderful people you get to bring into the fold, but to have that network of fellows as well. You're all enthusiastic people who want to do something in life, and you're going to support each other. And that's going to be the biggest strength of this program, I think, as you grow. I don't underestimate what time will do.
Yes.
So, yeah,
I think that is so true because everyone like wants to see change happen instantaneously. And
yeah.
it is really it's that small, consistent change that really makes a huge difference. So I really hope the fellows, when once they see this video, they'll really put a lot of thought into what they're doing and learn from the lessons that you have learned from, and now they can also learn from the same as well. Rohini, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. It's so wonderful to see what you've done and how you've grown and the decisions and things that you've gotten into. So thank you so much for your time and for
Thank
talking to us. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to reflect on a lot of things that have happened. It feels like I'm still on this path to somewhere where
Yeah.
I will have more insights, but I think it's a good way to celebrate what I have been able to accomplish, and fuel me for more. And hopefully I will get to interact with the fellows in some other format as well.
Yes, definitely. So thank you for being part of the Open Talk program, and you will be joining the alumni group. So
Yes.
meeting up with everybody
Forward
on the Goa School Hive, as we like to call it.
Yes, I love that. Thank you
Thank
so much for
My pleasure. Thanks again. And we'll stop here.